I watch a trio. You know, I watch a say. Now, Mr. Bajay, I'm a very Mr. Bajay, and my sword was not holding on.
We are back again, and today's true crime story, it's coming from my country, Ghana in West Africa, once again, because as is evident, evil doesn't sleep, and this case in itself has its own dynamics and leaves you questioning what people wouldn't be ready to do just to get some money. So today's true crime story is about an immigration officer in Ghana called Stephen Kofi Amoah, aka Otumfo Nana, aka Kofi Amoah King. And this guy, as at the time of putting out this episode, has unfortunately been unalived by some people after he had left home on notification from a very good friend of his to meet him up and take some money from him, which he allegedly owed him. And that was the last time anybody saw this guy. And the next time they saw him, he was unalived, and the rest is a mystery the police is trying to solve. This case has a lot of nuances, and honestly, there are different angles this case could go. But I'm going to take my time and elaborate on the details that have been put out so far. The Ghana Police Service themselves have also put out a statement. I'm going to elaborate everything that has been put out per reports and also per the Ghana Police Service. A suspect has been arrested. And then I'm also going to try to put out my 2 cents with regard to possibilities that may end up coming out of this case, looking at what has been put out. But as always, before I get into that, if you are watching me, kindly check if you've subscribed. If not, just subscribe for me and let me know in the comment section you've subscribed. My analytics show me that most of you are watching my videos but haven't subscribed, and it's hurting my channel. Thank you so much for doing me that favor, and I promise to continue giving you excellent content. Now, to the case at hand. Stephen King Amoah. This guy is a football fanatic and also an immigration officer. For those of you who are quite conversant with social media in Ghana in particular, you would see this guy all over social media. He supports one of the biggest teams in Ghana and in Africa, Asante Kotoko. And he's also an Arsenal fan. So mostly you see him going to the stadium to watch football matches. And on some occasions, he has been seen there with a good friend of his called Dɛαd. Note the name, because he is going to be one of the key reference points in this true crime story. Dɛαd is a very close friend of this now deceased immigration officer, Stephen King Amoah. They have been moving together for quite some time, according to reports, and it turns out that Stephen King Amoah in himself is also married to a policewoman whose name I wouldn't put out, and between them they have one kid. So it looks like he is gradually building up life, and as is obvious with anybody living life, they are always trying to build up on themselves and their family. So it's been reported that in the pursuit of this immigration officer, Stephen King Amoah, was actually told by this very close friend of his called Dɛαd that change of government just took place in Ghana, where the former government, the NPP government, was kicked out of power after the just ended presidential election over 6 months ago, and a new government under the opposing political party, the NDC, was ushered in. And it's been rumored that Dɛαd had actually told Stephen that he has some connections in this new government who can help secure jobs for people. And on the back of this, they allegedly reached a discussion where, according to Bright, the people who will be helped to gain jobs under this new administration would have to part with some money to facilitate the process. And based on the trust that Stephen King-Amwa has in this so-called very good friend of his, it's been alleged again that he took his word and started telling people who he was close with and wanted them to also progress in their life, so to speak, such that he would come to them and tell them, oh, I have this friend who has a connection in the government and he's telling me they can help people get jobs and I think you should take advantage of it. Then Stephen would then take the money and go and give it to Bright. So he became more like a middleman off of the words of Bright Aware that allegedly had been agreed on between themselves per the facilitation of this employment for people who had wanted to take advantage of the connection that Bright Aware has. So you may be wondering, why all this? Maybe, I don't know where you are watching from, which country you are watching from, but you might be thinking this is unusual, but in some places, sometimes these things work in one way or the other. So that is the backstory to it as to how come monies moved from people to Stephen King-Amwa, and then from Stephen King-Amwa, the monies then went to Bright Aware, allegedly. After this, it's been alleged that weeks went by, weeks began to turn to months, and the jobs were not coming, and now the people started mounting pressure on this immigration officer to the point that they were actually suspecting he had defrauded them. And he in turn also started talking to Bright that, please, the people are giving me pressure. Some of them are actually my family members and they are suspecting I may have duped them, which I know I haven't because I haven't profited from this in any way. I just wanted to help them based on what you told me and the confidence I put in it. So if it's not going to work, just give me the money so I can refund back to them and preserve my integrity. But then that became another problem because the money was also not coming back. So it's like the jobs that were promised were not being given, and the monies that were paid in furtherance of those jobs to be gained were also not being refunded. So Stephen Kofi or King-Amwa was now caught in the middle. And for someone who is called Otumfuo Nana, that name commands a lot of power because I'm sure you know of Otumfuo as the Asantehene in Ghana. He's one of the most powerful kings in the world. So for somebody to have a title as Otumfuo Nana, it sort of puts the person in the pedestal of somebody with high repute and integrity, although he's not actually related to this person. But people take on that name just to put some sort of tag on themselves that they have integrity. But as it stands now per this, the integrity of Stephen King-Amwa was actually in disrepute, to the point that it's even been alleged that some of these people whose monies had been taken by Stephen and passed on to Bright in pursuit of these promised jobs actually reported him to the police, and he was even arrested on suspicion of fraud. That is the allegation out there. It's been alleged. So imagine an immigration officer being arrested for something like this. And that would mean that it was taking a toll on his personal life and even on his profession. So things were getting heated until fast forward the 3rd of July, when finally it's been alleged that Bright Aware, the very close friend of the now deceased immigration officer Stephen King-Amwa, reached out to him and told him that his money is finally ready. He should come for the money. This was sometime around 8 p.m. on this 3rd of July 2025. And per what I read from the police statement issued out on this, they are saying that he reached out to Stephen via WhatsApp and sent him pictures of a bundle of cash, telling him that the money is ready and that Stephen should meet him at a particular spot. Spot here is being used as reference to an eating joint, a pub of a sort. But other reports are saying that when Stephen got to this pub, his friend then reached out to him again that no, he doesn't want to bring the money to him there because it's too much of an open space, and for security reasons, it would be better Stephen, the immigration officer, comes to the house of his close friend Bright and pick up the money. Now, at this point, he's an immigration officer. I'm sure he has a bit of training or a lot of training in security and how to decipher certain things and see red flags. And you would expect he should have picked up on how odd the change in location is, given that it was quite sudden after he had already got into that first location. But then there comes the bit about the trust he probably had for this close friend of his, to the point that even if that thought had come, that suspicion had come, it's very likely that because of who he was dealing with, being Bright aware, a very close friend of his, it's likely he would have just overlooked it again, thinking that no, he cannot do anything like that, so he would just go. But that was the last time anybody saw him alive. Let me put it that way. That was the last time anybody would see Stephen King Amwa alive. Fast forward, it's been alleged that his wife, on that same evening of 3rd July, would then receive WhatsApp messages from her husband, Stephen King Amwa's number, telling her that he has received the money from his close friend Bright Away. And the money is up to the tune of about 200,000 Ghana cedis. If you convert it to US dollars, it's almost 20,000 US dollars. And he told her, well, the message from his phone told her that he had received this money, but that instead of the 200,000 cedis, Bright Away had actually given him 500,000 cedis. And that the extra 30,000, the extra 300,000 was from Bright Away to him, that him, Stephen, should hold on to it for safekeeping for his close friend to come back for later on. So just converting the money into dollars, it meant that Bright had to give Stephen 20,000 US dollars, but he had ended up giving him 50,000 US dollars with the explanation that he should keep the 20,000 US dollars he owed him, that is him refunding the money back to Stephen. And then the 30,000 is what he wants Stephen to keep for him for safekeeping, and he'll come back for later. All this was communicated in a WhatsApp message, allegedly, from Stephen's number to his wife. And then again, he's also been reported that his number also sent similar WhatsApp messages to some people he had taken monies from to give to brides who were hassling him to get their monies back. And when his wife received the message, it's been reported again that she felt it was a bit odd looking at the tone of the message, because the thing is, if you have been receiving WhatsApp messages from a person for some time, you begin to see the underlying tone and the underlying dynamics of how that person communicates with you in that medium. So if it comes in a different way, you can tell. And it seems that's what his wife's instincts pick up, because she's also a police officer, don't forget. And then based on that, she tried calling him back, but his number was not going through. She tried calling severally, the calls never went through. Fast forward, they couldn't hear from him again. They called and called, they couldn't hear from him. Then she reached out to one of his relatives, who then went to his house to see if he was there. And he lived at a part of Accra in Ghana called Ashoman Estates. So this relative allegedly went to his house to confirm if he was home, just to prompt him that, hey, your wife is checking on you and we are not getting through to you. But when he got there, feedback from the people in the house was that Stephen King Amwa had left home that evening to get to his friend's place and pick something up, but he had never returned. So just like that, it was looking like this was becoming the case of a missing person. And they lodged a report with the police, who then launched an investigation into this. Now, many people do not know this, but the Ghana Police Service is one of the best, not just in the African sub-region, but also in the world as a whole. I've seen firsthand the depths and extent they've gone to in pursuit of solving criminal cases, and I tell you, these guys know what they are doing, and they proved it, because as this broke, they started the investigation, and most people usually think that crime should be solved as quickly as they see it being done in movies. But honestly, it doesn't work that way. Quality actually takes time. And when it comes to investigations, it's always important that the police ensure that they leave no stone unturned. And well, as I would add, they leave no turn unstoned. They have to make sure they dot their I's and cross their T's. And that is exactly what the Ghana Police Service did, because they put in the work and the results started showing. And this is what they found. They were able to determine that all these things had happened between Stephen King Amwa and his so-called close friend Bright Away. And they were able to establish the WhatsApp messages, the pictures. That doesn't mean they've solved the case, but they are breaking it down, and I respect the need for a thorough investigation to be done, and it looks like that's exactly what they are doing. And as it stands now, they've even issued a report indicating that they have subsequently arrested Bright Away as the key suspect in the unaliving or murder of Stephen King Amwa. Take note, the key word here is suspect. It doesn't mean that Bright Away is the one responsible, but as per how the things are unfolding, he is a person of interest, and in this case classified as a key suspect. And when you go on social media, sometimes people fail to recognize the dynamics and nuances in these things. So he's already being treated on social media by some people as though he's guilty. No. In the eyes of the law, he's actually innocent, even at this point, until found guilty by a competent court of law. That is the fact. Alright, so back to the case. Now, his arrest has taken place and investigations are still ongoing. And when he was arrested, according to the police statement, they tried to find out from him as to where he got that 500,000 Ghana cedis from. And the US dollar equivalent is $50,000. They tried to find out where he got it from, if he had it at all. But it looks like he was giving conflicting stories to the police. And well, it still does not make him guilty, but it makes him look more suspicious. And like I told you, I know the police are still investigating further. But at this point, I would want to also put in my 2 cents on what I am suspecting could be one of the many possibilities that could stem out of this case as the investigations continue being done. Now, the first thing is, it's very possible that Charles Awe, by virtue of the WhatsApp messages he sent to Stephen Kinamwa showing him money that he said he had to give to him and was ready for him to come and take from him could actually have been telling the truth. It's possible he gave him the money and afterwards some people also accosted Stephen Kinamwa, robbed him of the money, and unalived him. That is one possibility. It's possible that he gave him the money, but maybe one way or the other, some people had gotten to know that Stephen Kinamwa was coming for such an amount, and they then attacked him after he took the money and did this to him and took away the money. Now, the second possibility could be that he gave him the money and then he set him up for this to be done to him, so he takes back the money. That's the second possibility. Now, the third possibility is that there was no money at all and he just was tired of the fact that this guy was persistently following him for the money, and he saw how big this could become against him, and he realized that at this point I can't get the money for Stephen Kinamwa, but I would also not want people to think I owe him. So I'm hatching this ploy where I'm going to posture on WhatsApp like I have the money, come and take it, which leaves a digital footprint which I can fall on as evidence that I've paid you. And after that, he set him up when he got there, and it turns out that he doesn't have the money to give to him, but he set him up for him to be unalived and silenced so that he doesn't come back to make noise again. And if anybody asks, I paid him the money, this is the evidence. I don't know what he did. I even have an extra 300,000 with him, which I'm looking for him to take. That is also a strong possibility. So how many do we have? 3. I'm still processing to see if there could be a fourth, and I think there could be, where it's also possible that he did all this and it turned out to be something else, where maybe he never had the money, but then he posted like this on WhatsApp to create an impression he has the money, where he may have been thinking, even if Stephen comes and he can't give him the money and he returns back, he can now argue with him based on that pictorial evidence and message in WhatsApp that he has the money and he gave him the money, and so Stephen has been paid. He shouldn't come back to ask him, and Stephen may now be owing him 300,000 because he paid him in excess of that, which he can argue with him on later on. But that he is not responsible for unaliving Stephen because maybe other people had gotten to know Stephen has been invited to come and take money from Bright, and they followed him thinking they will overpower him and take the money once he receives it from Bright. So when Stephen left Bright's house without the money being given to him, those people, still not knowing he doesn't have money, may have did this to him, may have done this to him, thinking they will finish and take money, only to realize he wasn't giving money. That is a fourth possibility. And there are other possibilities I may not have thought of. If you have something like that, you can let me know in the comment section. But one thing is clear in all these possibilities, that Stephen Kinamwa has been unalived, and the timing of him being unalived side by side with him being asked to take the money is quite suspicious, if I should use that word. And like I told you, I know the Ghana Police Service are very excellent at their job, and I know that they are putting in the work. As it stands now, Stephen leaves behind a wife and a kid. My heart goes out to his family. I hope they find the strength and closure on this. I hope the police solve the case, and whoever the culprit or culprits are, I hope that they are given the punishment that is commensurate with what they've done. RIP to Stephen Kenamwa, aka Otumfo Nana, aka Kofi Amwa. But like I've been saying, evil lives with us. And in all this, there could even be a fifth possibility where his death is totally unrelated to all these money issues. Yeah, it's possible. But then there's also the question of, did he really send those messages to his wife himself? Was he the one who sent those WhatsApp messages, or they were sent by the assailants? I'm sure the police will be able to determine all these things as they dig deeper into the investigation, because I think that is one key aspect of this case. The timing, or let me say the synchronization or the determination of the timing with regards to the time of death vis-a-vis the time the messages were sent. It's very critical. It will be able, if it's able to be determined, it will be helpful in determining whether he sent those messages himself or they were sent by someone else. But if they were sent by someone else, how did the person know who to send it to? Unless he was forced to give up some names they can send it to make it believable. And again, if he sent it himself, did he send it willingly because he actually received money, or he was forced to send those messages under duress so that it sells a convincing belief that he has received the money, even though he was never given the money, but set up to look like he received it? Yeah, it's a lot to process, and that's even just me, a novice. That is why I tell you, the Ghana Police Service, they are one of the best in the game. And I know they go more thorough, they look at things more deeply, and they are one of the best on this continent and across the world. I'm following this investigation, and I know there will be breakthroughs in the days that follow. I'll get it, and I'll bring you the updates. Stay safe out there. Keep your head on a swivel. I'll catch you on the next one.